Hey there. It is Friday, October 21st. Wow. Flying ties, you know? Um, and what's been going on? I've had a lot of fun. I started working on this last week, and it's taken me years. Boy, speaking of years, I got a topic I'm going to get to a little bit later that something that has evolved over the last like 40 or so years that, well, anyway, I'll save that story for a little bit later. Um, this is a tune. This is, of course, Please Come to Boston. Now, what I was messing with there is not how my lesson on it goes, but it's like finally got to it after this had been a heavily requested tune back in the days when we had the recommend a lesson category. We still kind of have it, but it's not as hyper used as it used to be back in the early TG days, and it for some reason the song popped up a couple of weeks ago. Somebody asked me, one of my students asked me about it, and I thought, man, I'm sure I've done a lesson. Nah, I meant to about 15 times. I never got to it. Great tune though, of course, Dave Loggins, and went to great lengths to try to transcribe these two guitar parts that happen in the beginning. So I hope you get a chance to check it out. It's just barely up live now, so I'm sure you haven't seen it yet, unless you like are glued here every day, just like me. But it was really fun putting together that lesson because I feel like accomplished something, and I hope people have a good time. It's in drop D tuning and capoed, but also gave me a good chance to work on talking about this type of finger picking pattern, where we use the arpeggio pattern, like in "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You," but alternated with an alternating pattern. So you only hear like 4 beats of arpeggiated eighth notes, and then alternating stuff. So the lesson has it was pretty again falls in the generic finger picking category, and I wrote out one verse the way I would do it and the chorus, but hope you can make it your own. That's what's going on with that. So what else has been going on here? I want to talk about, actually I had some keep your eyes on your email, because each week we've been putting up special deals on various packs. Last week it was packs whose bands started with E. We had Eagles and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Fleetwood Mac. 2 E's near the beginning, good enough. But yeah, we're kind of getting in the habit of running specials on all of the packs. So there'll be an email coming out on Saturday that will talk about what it is for next week. Anyway, enough of that. My fun, and this is going to sort of lead into what I want to talk about in terms of theory today, had to do with a song I first heard about 40 years ago when a student sent me home with a record. Back in those days we didn't have turntables in the studio, but and nowadays, of course, they come into the studio and we got YouTube and we can find the song right away. But my student Greg Morin many years ago came in with a Doc Watson album. It was a double album. Oh man, it wasn't Memories, but I think it was a compilation album, and had a version of him and his son his son Merle playing Windy and Warm. And so I kind of worked it out by ear, and have now played it for all those years, and never really went back to pay attention to it to see, well, I wonder how accurately I'm doing this. And so I watched a few videos recently of the original version, which was Chet Atkins, and other versions of Doc, even a version of Doc playing it kind of slowly and talking his way through it and showing you what he does and things like that. And this also kind of got on my radar because at camp this year, my old Joplin and Sweeney partner, Greg Berger, showed up, and we decided to try playing it together as in front of everybody, and we had certainly never practiced it, but it worked out okay. But it made me think, everybody plays that little melody a little bit differently. And then one of the students there mentioned that he had seen a workshop with Guy Van Duzer, who is famous for his Stars and Stripes Forever and the Western TV medley. Anyway, put together. He was having a class on Windy and Warm, and Leonard, I think it was, mentioned that he spent like an hour and a half talking about one measure, that, which I've always played like this. Made it, I don't know, just that's how I thought I heard it on Doc's album 40 years ago. And so we even watched Tommy Emmanuel do it and everybody else. And now I'm thinking, so I should put a disclaimer in my lesson on Windy and Warm, because it's virtually the way it's the way it's grown on its own with me playing it all those years. And I thought, some people might want me to add a little part to it that shows a little bit more of how some original parts went. Not exactly that, but that is going to get to what I'll talk about today. So at the end of this, I'm going to mess around with Windy and Warm, and even Doc. Boy, one thing that was really cool in Doc's, he's of course playing it with a thumb pick, which lets him do this. And different chords there. Doc uses F to G. Let's see. Chet Atkins did this. Went to E minor. Tommy Emmanuel went to E minor. But didn't have this melody, which Chet had. Anyway, so at the end of this, I might do a little improv on Windy and Warm. Probably will. But what I do want to talk about is the part that I had kind of missed. In the second section from Doc's, I had always done this. Etc. And there was a whole part in there that I missed that was the same melody played an octave lower. Harmonized in thirds. Almost thirds. Fourths when I got there. And that led me to something that I want to get into a little theory thing of. It can be really helpful to know quickly what note is a third from whatever note you're talking about, and whether that's a major third or a minor third. So these two strings are conveniently tuned in thirds on the guitar, the G and the B string. Well, G to B is, notice we have half steps in our scale, of course, in our universe, between E and F and B and C. So every letter to the next letter is either a whole step or a half step, and if it's not E or B, the next letter is a whole step away. Well, it can be really handy to know how far away the third is from any note, like G. So every third is either going to be a step and a half or two steps. A step and a half would be a minor third, and two steps would be a major third. So it can be handy to know whether you're playing a major third or a minor third. This, I don't need this pick anymore. I might put it back on if I play into Windy and Warm. This is a major third, G to B, because between G and B there are no natural half steps. G, A, B. Nothing in there. That means it has to be two steps. But as soon as I get to A and go to its natural third, meaning just the white key, it'd be C, that's different. It's smaller because A, B, C. There's the B to C half step in there. So that's a minor third. So if you start thinking about letters, like if I start on F, its third is going to be, got it? A. Major or minor? Well, didn't cross a half step because it went from F to A. So it has to be a major third. That would mean a minor third from F would be A flat. Okay, where I'm going with this is, and I've talked about this on an update recently, I think, is it can be really helpful to be able, or handy to be able to play thirds on these two strings in, let's say, the key of A minor, which means I'd start with A would be my first lower note, and then C would be my higher one. So if I want to play my whole A minor scale in thirds, it's going to be A and C, B and D, same distance, a minor third. But when I get to C, and because that crossed a half step, B to C was in between B and D. But the next third is going to start on C and be a major third. So it's going to be two notes at the same fret. C and E. The next one's going to be D and its third F, which is small because we now brought the E to F half step in, which means the next one's going to be small too because it's going to start on E and go from E to G. But the next one is going to start on F, and that's going to be major, F to A. Then continuing G and B and A and C. So here is the whole scale, the whole A minor scale, played in thirds. And that could come in really handy for this little section of Windy and Warm. Instead of this, so anyway, getting back to Windy and Warm, it's a song that really is open to interpretation and improvisation because it's got 4 sections, each of which has a fairly simple chord progression. So, let's see where it goes today. I want to do it with the pick. I will, just to get a little bit of dock sound. Let's do that again. The alternate ending, F to G. No, I'm not going to end it yet because I still haven't done 2 sections. Go to the G part. Throw in a C9, an F7. Try the F to E. So that F could go to E minor, or to G like Doc did, or just to E minor, or A minor. So lots of different options there. I just did the G part, didn't I? Let's do the A major part. I realized I did that. I've always made up a different bass part there too. Anyway, boy, I've been having nail problems too. Oh, so let me last little tip. This also came up in a lesson the other day. Broke my 3rd nail a week or 2 ago, and so it's really made those notes like if you look at the lesson real carefully on. Please come to Boston. There are a lot of times when I'm not getting good tone out of the 1st string because the nail has disappeared. Hopefully it'll be back by next week. But I had a suggestion for one of my students who was just getting used to using nails recently, and he'd mentioned that he cuts them back a little bit. He clips them every week or so to make them a little shorter. I said, "You're kidding! You can't take clippers to this. That'll make them all really weak and they'll keep breaking and cracking." I said, "Oh, wow. That is what happens all the time." Yeah. You got to file your right hand. Use emery boards and or metal files, little diamond files. Anyway, so that's what I always keep around. I say I've always got them around. I don't have one within reach here. I've got a bunch over there and a few over there and all over the rest of the house. But anyway, my advice today on nails is never clip your right hand if you use nails. Always just sand them down a little bit every couple days to keep them at the same length. Go ahead and clip your left nails because those have to be short. But okay, God, that, see that? Okay, I'm not going to play anymore until this nail comes back. It's hurting. So okay, I will be back next week. We'll be heading into Halloween weekend, and then we're into the weekend when the clocks change again, and then it's almost Thanksgiving. Oh, so be working on your Christmas tunes. I'm going to be brushing up on bad nail. See you next week.